Paul, can you lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Say a moment of silence for the men and women in the armed forces, our first responders, our veterans, and those in the Ukraine fighting the good fight, as well as those 3 individuals that passed and their families in the Virginia shooting. Thank you. Okay. I'd like to read our legal notice. Please take note that pursuant to sections 405 and 406 of the town charter, the Milford Town Council will hold a public hearing, public comment related to the following proposed ordinance. Prohibition of cannabis use on town property. It is proposed that the ordinance be added to the New Milford Code of Ordinances as authorized by said charter sections 405 and 406, Chapter 98 of the General Statutes. A copy of the proposed ordinance is on file at Town Clerk's office and available for examination. Said hearing will be held Monday, November 14th, 6:30 p.m., E. Paul Martin Room, 2nd floor, Town Hall, dated 4th day of November, 2022, New Milford, Connecticut. Do we have anybody, Sal, that would like to speak on the ordinance?
Mike Sanella.
All right, Mike Sinello, 111 Willow Springs. The ordinance is nice and short and sweet, so I would just like to please read it into the record if you guys don't mind. I'll read the whole thing since it's only like 4 sentences. 2C1, definitions, cannabis, marijuana, and vaping, as used in this chapter, shall have the same meaning as stated in Public Act 21-1, the so-called, quote, responsible and equitable regulation of adult use cannabis act, end quote. Section 2C-2, where cannabis use is prohibited, smoking and vaping of cannabis and any derivative thereof, in any form, or in any municipally owned or leased property is prohibited. Subsection 2C-3, any person who violates the provisions of this ordinance shall be subject to a fine of $250. That way, at least everyone at home who's watching has an idea of what the ordinance is that we're talking about. And since it's so nice and short and sweet, I can read the whole thing. Just very briefly, I hope the next time the council is in session to discuss this, they ask the attorney, what constitutes municipally owned or leased property, especially as it relates to the municipally owned roads? So does this apply to passengers in a vehicle? Does this apply to 2 neighbors who are adults and don't have kids in the house at the end of a cul-de-sac at night after everyone's gone to bed, popping up chairs at the end of their cul-de-sac and watching the stars? So not a complaint, just a question. Love to hear the answer from the attorney when that time comes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Thanks, Mike. Do we have anybody else? Sal?
Alexander Thomas. Alex.
You lost me in the crowd.
Yeah.
Alexandra Thomas, 187 Aspetuck Ridge Road. Good evening, thank you. I have some concerns with regard to this. My concerns are that there is recreational use of cannabis in many forms, and I'm concerned that we are dealing with more than smoking. I agreed with the secondhand smoke being an issue, no problem with that, but I am concerned about other forms of cannabis and whether they would also fall under this. The way it's worded, it's a little vague. Also, we already have a town ordinance that prohibits smoking on town property. To me, smoking is smoking, whether it's cannabis or tobacco. So I feel we already have an ordinance that's dealing especially with the concern that came up at town council about secondhand smoke. So I will not be supporting this tonight because I feel we are putting ourselves in position of lawsuits down the road. We have people who have prescriptions for the use of cannabis, and I can see some real problems coming at us in the future. Thank you.
Thank you.
No
Anybody
more,
else, Sal?
nobody from the audience
Okay.
for the subject.
Thank you, Sal. So quickly, some of the research that I did was, how are other towns handling this? So let's check the tape. Let's check the city of Torrington. any product containing, made, or derivative of tobacco or nicotine, marijuana, hemp, or any of their derivatives that are intended for human consumption, whether smoked, heated, chewed, dissolved, inhaled, snorted, sniffed, or ingested by any other means, including but not limited to cigarettes, cigars, little cigars, chewing tobacco, pipe tobacco, snuff, and edibles, is not allowed. That's the city of Torrington. Let's look at Bethel. No smoking or alcohol of use of drugs on any town fields or parks. Smoke-free zone. Let's look at Newtown. Drugs, tobacco products, or glass containers are strictly prohibited inside all parks at all times. Violators may be prosecuted. Let's look at Sherman, our neighbor. Let's see what they have here. Smoking prohibited. So a lot of our neighboring towns don't limit the use of smoking. Now, we could have done something similar. I asked Randy. We could have just changed our policy to include cannabis in our smoking regulations. No, I wanted us to be way more transparent than that. I want the public to know that smoking cannabis on town property, if this goes through, is illegal. And there's a proper mechanism put in place, which happens to be town council and this ordinance. Now, whereas it was mentioned here at public meeting where there's some sort of non-clarity about this, let me reread it so those watching now and in the minutes and you as town council can get this. This would be 2C2, where cannabis use is prohibited. Smoking and vaping of cannabis and any derivative thereof in any form on or in a municipality owned or leased property is prohibited. Seems pretty cut and dry to me. Our town attorney is here. So Randy, this is intended for only smoking and vaping of cannabis.
That's how I was instructed to draft it, and that's how I drafted it.
Thank you. Randy, there was also some questions concerning municipal property. So as mentioned before, what about a town road? What about the fact, are you on a cul-de-sac?
A town road or a cul-de-sac would be considered a property of way. In other words, either by easement or by dedication or taking. That's a transient area. That doesn't apply.
Thank you, Randy. Is there anyone else that would like to speak concerning the use of cannabis on town property? See if, we have some hands raised. Yes? You have to come up to the podium, state your name, your address.
I'm Mary Antonelli. I'm from 6 McNulty in Northville, and I feel strongly about secondhand smoke issues. You have children walking around. I grew up in a house with secondhand smoke, and it's a very dangerous thing to do. So I support you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If I may add.
And Sal,
So, in my opinion, the law was imposed on society versus was voted for society. In other words, Governor Lamont signed a law that actually doesn't serve all of us. It serves few of us, probably 10 or 15% of the society or population of Connecticut. So again, it was imposed on us. It wasn't asked. There was no referendum on it. It was just one signature that changed pretty much everything. Now, second hand smoking is absolutely right, and it's not supposed to be it's not supposed to be allowed. So I support your idea about banning it.
thank you, Sal. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Sean Kelly, 106 Railroad Street.
Yes, sir.
I had a lot of questions online not more than 20 minutes ago because I said I was coming up here. No one else is here. But people are really wondering about the public. And they're wondering, if I go down by the river and smoke a joint and I'm fishing, am I going to get hassled? If I'm hiking through the woods, no one's around, am I going to get hassled? That kind of thing. I don't think anybody's thinking about going to the green and sitting in a circle and doing bong hits like it's the 60s. So they're wondering exactly what you were saying. I guess they want clarification where they can and where they can't. Because in their minds, town property is a huge scope. And then he's, like he said, on a cul-de-sac, technically it's town property, but there's a different definition for it.
Correct.
So that's what people are more concerned about. And everybody's like, oh, they just made it legal. Now they're trying to take the rights away. And I understand the secondhand smoke, but it's a little different than cigarettes. People chain smoke cigarettes everywhere, constantly. If you're a smoker, anybody that's a smoker knows. Joints aren't like that. People might smoke a joint or half a joint, and then it's over. And they're not going to be sitting next to a kid smoking a joint. I mean, for the most part, I'm sure there's always bad people. So I guess I'm here to clarify it
Sure.
for other people.
And we normally don't talk to the public when we have public discourse. So I'll wait till you're finished and then kind of clarify the towns, and speaking with our town attorney, some of the unintended consequences. So I can't rebuttal back to you because we don't do that during public participation.
Okay.
But after you're completed, there are some things raised. I may be able to clarify that for the public at large and those watching.
Okay, yeah, I'm good.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. So some of the things we did talk about at the last town council meeting, first and foremost, is the secondhand smoke and the fact that public places are supposed to be for everyone, non-exclusive of anybody, right? It's all supposed to be equal. Now, with that in mind too, as Randy will tell you, we have a very litigious society nowadays. They will sue for anything. So as I was telling Randy, you could be smoking a joint, right, down by the river, and you could be walking on the sidewalk, right, that's down there, the river thing, and fall because you're pretty high, right? Because who knows, maybe you got a real good, got a real potent patch there, right? So, and you fall, you're going to sue the town. Let's say you get in the car, right, Randy? And now you're driving, and you crash, and you hit someone. And they're going to say, where did you smoke that's marijuana cigarette, or that joint? Where did you smoke? Oh, it's over there in the town. Oh, really? Well, Randy, what happens then?
Well, what you have is, that legislature talked about that, as a matter of fact, because as you know, in Connecticut, we have something known as the Dram Shop Act. The Dram Shop Act is when someone serves somebody, and it's host liability too, who don't get paid. If somebody serves somebody knowing that that individual is intoxicated and they go out and cause harm, could be liability on the server.
And the
So
fact that, Randy, that we would have allowed something like
The
that.
facilitator.
Right.
Now, that case hasn't happened yet, it's gone. The most recent case, about 20 years ago, not most recent case, a case that was landmarked is Ely against Murphy. And in that case, a Richfield family allowed their kids to give out beer for a graduation party. Well, a tragedy happened. And the Murphy family was held liable for facilitating the ingestion of alcohol on the premises and letting people partake and go. So the reality is that you know how it happens. It happens incrementally. So that is obviously a potential. Whether it's going to happen or not, I can't foresee, but I do a lot, as you know. I mean, a lot of litigation and things that I saw 40 years ago, or didn't see 40 years ago, but I do see nowadays. So yes, that is an issue.
So, unfortunately, when we're looking at the whole scope of this, we got to look at the fact that, the town, there could be some litigation that could come before it. So we kind of have to hedge our bets, so to speak. Hence why, besides the second-hand smoke, that we could get sued for that now, too. We have to really minimize our risk. And that's pretty much one of the main drivers and reasons why we're looking at town properties not allowing that for the town property. Now, as far as your own home and everything else, I know there was a couple conjectures. That's your own home. You know what I mean? But as far as town buildings, town property, I mean, for the reasons that we just stated, we really have to just be aware of litigation and really trying to minimize and mitigate those risks for our taxpayers.
I have a comment.
Katie?
You know, we're focusing on the town property. I think we have to remember this is the largest town in the state, and we have an awful lot of property that's not the town's. And I think that if you are, if you want to go fishing, you could find someplace to fish that isn't town property. It isn't this town's property anyway. It might be the state's property, if you go up to Houstonic or whatever, farther up. But I think that we're focusing on, because we live here and we have opinions, which is great. We should all have an opinion on this. It's important. But I think, in real life, you know what you've done in your life, and I know what I've done in mine, and there's lots of places to do things that you might not do on the middle of the green. So that's sort of how I look at it. If we step back a bit, I don't think it's going to impede anybody from enjoying whatever it is they want to enjoy any more than they've been impeded up to this point.
Thank you. Paul?
Question. As other towns are voting on this, approving or disapproving, many of them are putting restrictions on distance from a location, 500 to 1,500 feet away from town property. Are we,
So zoning, Randy, could you opine on how zoning has treating the distance?
The zoning commission is working on this right now. What they've done is they've tried to incorporate the recreational aspect into the medical marijuana regulations. We have a really great zoning enforcement officer, and she's working on that even as we speak, because separation distances are allowed under the statute. You can do that. And I'll brief you later on the intensity and the depth of the revision. 54 pages of it. So the fact is that separating distances are allowed, and they would be handled by zoning.
Distances from where people can smoke?
Distances from,
South.
right.
Okay.
Distance
I'm
from a
just-
town
I didn't understand that.
space,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, I think that's important, Hillary, that everybody understand. This ordinance doesn't have anything to do with where we may end up with a dispensary or a grower. This is strictly, right, Mayor?
Smoking.
We're not going
Vaping.
anywhere near
It's
that.
only smoking
This
or
is-
vaping
Smoke.
Right,
on town property.
right.
Thank you.
Any other discussion from the town council? Any other discussion from our public? Like to entertain a motion to close?
So moved.
Any other discussion? All is in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Opposed to the closing of the meeting?
Oh, no,
Oh,
sorry.
okay.
Sorry.